Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Aero South Africa webinar in conjunction with Safety First Aviator. I'm just going to give it about 30 seconds for people to join us, and then we can start. So I'm just going to give it about 30 seconds, and then we'll start the session. Okay, the numbers are coming in. That's great. Okay, let's get going. Just again, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, welcome to the Aero South Africa webinar. We always do it in conjunction with Safety First Aviator. And this webinar tonight is entitled, Now You Are Airborne, How Do You Keep It Safe? My name is Neil Piper, the Head of Content for Messi Frankfurt, South Africa. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce Annelie Reynolds, a Portfolio Director of Messi Frankfurt, South Africa, and the Show Director of Aero South Africa to address you. Over to you, Annelie.
Thanks, Neil. Welcome everyone to tonight's Safety First Aviator and Aero South Africa webinar. As Neil mentioned, my name is Annelie Reynolds and I'm the Show Director for Aero South Africa. I almost feel like I'm always the bearer of bad news during these webinars, and tonight I again have news to share. I'll rip the band-aid off first and start with the sad news. Our event partners in Germany made the announcement today that the European summer edition of Aero Friedrichshafen will not take place this year in July as originally planned. This is once again due to the restrictions on hosting events around the world brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. This general aviation trade show will now take place at the end of April in 2022. But I also have some exciting news. If you don't have plans for this upcoming weekend and you have sneakily made it a long weekend, why don't you join the Aero Club of South Africa at their yearly Air Week in Middelburg? The event kicks off on Friday evening, 24 April, with a braai on the airfield and ends on Tuesday, 27 April, with the speed rally. This is definitely a jam-packed weekend for aviation fanatics and you don't want to miss it. For more information, visit the Aero Club website on www.aeroclub.org.za/airweek. Now over to our own event, Aero South Africa, which you should know by now has been postponed to July 2022. However, we do know that it is of extreme importance to keep visitors and exhibitors connected during the current business landscape, and as such, have the Aero South Africa virtual marketplace active until the end of August this year. Tonight's webinar will also be available to view on demand on this platform. If you have not yet registered as a visitor on the virtual marketplace, please visit virtualaerosouthafrica.co.za. That's virtualaerosouthafrica.co.za and complete the online registration form. Registration is free of charge. Should you be interested in booking a virtual stand on the platform or host a webinar for your business, please feel free to leave a message in the chat function and I'll get back to you with more information. And now, enough from me. Back to Neil to introduce you to our moderator for the evening, which I'm certain everyone knows already. And we can start this very informative webinar. Neil?
Annelie, thank you so much. You were talking about the virtual Aero South Africa platform. I was actually on it today, and there's some really good information. So do yourselves a favor, even if it's just to catch up on the previous webinars that we've hosted. They've been very, very informative. And again, tonight's webinar is going to be exactly the same. We've got such a wonderful lineup of speakers. We're so blessed to have you guys join us. But let me formally introduce Fran of Pilot Insurer, who will moderate the webinar tonight. And he'll formally introduce our speakers. If you're not aware, Frans is the founder and MD of Pilot Insurer, a specialist and boutique advice firm focusing on investments and risk cover for pilots. He's a big supporter of general aviation. He's a SAFA board member and has a lifelong passion for aviation. He's got over a decade of experience. He's been a superb host to all of our previous webinars, keeping it very light and engaging. After 7 o'clock at night, you don't want heavy webinars and heavy subject matters. And France definitely does a wonderful job keeping us all engaged. So France, as always, it's a pleasure to welcome you, and over to you now, Dave.
Hey Neil, thank you very much for that pretty cool introduction. Hi everyone, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I see earlier we went up to around about 80 people. That's great. And we know more people kind of jump in as we go along. Awesome to be with you again. Surely been a jam-packed couple of weeks in terms of aviation. I think it's really great. The aviation scene is picking up. We've got events all the time. We hosted our own event, was about 2 weeks ago at Ryder Park. It was a huge turnout, we had about 70 aircraft. And that's great. That's all telling us that aviation is definitely on the up. The guys are getting back to flying, getting up to the old tricks, I suppose. But Sankey will bring out the big stick later and tell us all about that. But it's amazing, it's really cool to see people getting back into it and starting to, we all hate that saying of, normality and normal life. But I suppose that's what it is. We are getting on and we've all made our plans and figured out our ways through this, and aviation is no different. We've spoken about resilience so often, about how resilient aviation is. We've spoken in other webinars about how we think aviation is going to be one of the industries that bounces back the fastest, and it definitely is. I do 2 or 3 return flights a week very often. And the airlines are busy. There might not be as many flights as we used to, but there's definitely a lot of bums on the seats. So that's really great, just from the commercial side. But we're not talking about the commercial side. We're talking about the GA side. We're talking about the fun part of aviation, and we've got to remember that. The GA aviation is all about fun. It's all about accessibility. It's all about making our little country smaller so you can get places faster and meet friends and family and do all the fun things in life. But at the same time, it's super important for us to obviously just check back in every now and then and just make sure that from a skill set point of view, from a decision-making point of view, that we're doing the right thing. And then we're not, throwing caution to the wind and just jumping on the airplane without doing pre-flight checks. Something very simple, but we've all done that before. And about a week ago, I saw a guy try and take off with I think it was an Arrow. And as he was taking initial power, he had to get out because he forgot to take his chocks out on the front tire. So that obviously tells you the pre-flight check wasn't great. So anyway, watching this, he gets back in, tries again, nothing happens. So he got out to take the chocks out in the front, but he forgot about the chocks on the left wheel. So it took him 2 goes to switch off the engine, get out. It was just interesting for me to notice that. But that is something that has happened to all of us. It's something that we shouldn't be doing, but we are human at the end of the day. And I think that's what's really great about these kind of events that we host and these webinars and the safety. It's really just reminders, guys. It's just reminders to do the basics, to do the basics right. But we've got a cool lineup tonight. I think you guys, you've been around, you've heard these speakers, need very little introduction, but I will do quick introductions for everyone tonight. Thanks again for everyone joining us. Look forward to it. So tonight, we're starting off with Ari Levine from Moderator SA, and he'll really go into showing the habits of what makes an effective pilot. And an effective pilot, obviously is very important. We need to know what that actually means to be an effective pilot. Ari, thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks for all the work you guys do at Moderator SA. And please, somewhere along the line, also just tell us a little bit about Moderator SA, just for the guys that don't know anything about it.
Thanks so much for the introduction. And if the technology behaves, there we go. So as Fran said, I'm going to be talking about the habits of effective pilots. But first, a very important introduction to Mayday South Africa and what we do. For those who don't know, Mayday is an organization of aviation peer volunteers who you can speak to whenever you have a crisis or a problem, or you just need to talk to somebody who has some insight into the aviation world. And I have colleagues in the organization who are air traffic controllers. I'm a GA pilot. There are a number of airline crew, and really whatever your issue is, if you need somebody to talk to, please contact us, and we're only too happy to listen and see what we can help with. So on to the 7 habits of highly effective pilots, with apologies and thanks to Stephen Covey. I'm sure many of you have probably had the chance to read the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and one of my colleagues at Mayday went through the exercise during COVID of applying these to aviation, and that's what I'm going to be talking about with you tonight. So without further ado, you can see 6 of the 7 on screen at the moment. Be proactive, begin with the end in mind. First things first, win-win. Seek first to understand, then to be understood, and synergize. And we'll leave the last one as a bit of a surprise because, well, I can. The first one is being proactive. And there's some very peculiar pictures about proactivity if you Google for them. So I just decided to use a picture I took over the weekend instead. And from an aviation point of view, proactivity can be summed up very simply as take the initiative to respond positively. And what is meant by that is to take action before a problem becomes an emergency. And if you can take action to even prevent a problem from happening in the first place, so much so the better. What Franz was saying about the pre-flight is a very good example of that. I think we've all been in a situation where we've flown when we shouldn't have, either a cold or some emotional disturbance or something like that. If you can not, that's a good idea. Being proactive is also taking action to improve the situation. So one of the things that I'm sure there's going to be lots of groaning about is for those who are no longer student pilots, when was the last time you practiced an engine fire procedure or a forced landing? These are all skills that are perishable and need refreshing. And often we don't practice them enough. Next is beginning with the end in mind. And that is, think about your goals. Think about the milestones that you need to reach in order to achieve your goals and track them. I'm sure everybody's very familiar with the 5 Ps. This is a family webinar, so I won't use the standard engineering version, but proper planning prevents poor performance is the family version. And all things are possible with planning. As you can see from that picture, I'm sure most of the people who are watching this webinar probably know about this little arrival. This was runway 11 at Rand Airport, which is just over 5,500 foot long and is only 50 foot wide, and is not often associated with Boeing 747 operations. And you can imagine the sort of planning that took place in order to achieve this for the delivery of the 747 for the museum there. And this refers not just to your ordinary pre-flight planning, but also your contingency planning. Starting with, if the weather is lousy and you can't go for the GA pilots, you know, very often an instrument rating is something that you use to say, actually, this is really not the right weather to be going into. And what other plans can you make? So it's very important to make sure that you don't put yourself under pressure at the last minute by ensuring that you've got a good strategy before you even get to the airfield. Next, putting first things first. And I'm sure every single pilot can say in their sleep, aviate, navigate, and communicate. I've added the administrate in inverted commas because I truly hate that Americanism. But it does sort of point out that only once you've completed the first three do you really need to worry about the paperwork. I'm not going to go into this in too much detail because it's very, very self-evident. There have been a number of incidents over the years caused by people neglecting to fly the aircraft. And there's not much point in trying to talk to ATC if you're not flying the aircraft. They can't really do that for you. But once you've got everything under control, navigation and communication are vital. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see the 4 quadrants that COVI divides everything into. The urgent and important, which you have to do, that's always aviate. The planning is quadrant 2, so that would be everything that you need to do to successfully fly. Quadrant 4 is the stuff that is not urgent and not important. We're all pressed for time. If you find that you've got lots of that sort of thing, it's a good idea to eliminate it. And quadrant 3 is the stuff that you can delegate. To those in a multi-crew environment, you can delegate to your other flight crew members. And for those of us with kids, well, that's the natural function of kids. You delegate to them and watch them do a better job than you could ever hope to do. So first things first, and fly the plane. Next, think win-win. And this is a very interesting one because here the airmanship word arrives. And I think this is one of those things that everybody sort of knows what it is, but formal definitions are often a problem. One of the very good internet resources is Skybrary, and the definition of airmanship at Skybrary states that airmanship is the consistent use of good judgment and well-developed skills to accomplish flight objectives. This consistency is founded on a cornerstone of uncompromising flight discipline and is developed through systematic skill acquisition and proficiency. A high state of situational awareness completes the airmanship picture and is obtained through a knowledge of one's self, one's aircraft, environment, team, and risk. So it's a huge mouthful, but I think we all know that it means courtesy, understanding, and big picture. And what I really want to bring up in view of everybody's absence from the aviation scene, those of us flying the more complicated flight decks, guys, review that stuff on the ground before you get into the air. You know, VFR does not mean sitting staring at your fancy screens all the time. It means eyes outside looking for other traffic and enjoying what's going on around you. And my friend the shark is there just to serve to make that point slightly more vigorously. Communication. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Some very obvious ones here. If you're flying in controlled airspace and you are unsure of your clearance, ask. Nobody minds repeating if it's necessary. For those of you who have been lucky enough to go to the place referenced by that control tower picture, Whitman Field in Wisconsin during AirVenture, the controllers there will repeat clearances. Radio discipline. I was asked by more than one of the radio license examiners just to mention the following. Any traffic, please advise, is not something that needs to be in anybody's vocabulary. That's why you're making the transmission, so that if somebody else is there, they can say something. And all you're doing really is blocking the frequency. So hopefully the bribes that I'm getting from those guys will cover the cost of a couple of liters of avgas for next weekend. It's also vitally important, if you're flying with a passenger or another flight crew member, make sure that there is a good understanding of what each crew member's responsibility is, and if you're taking up a passenger, what they're supposed to do. A very clear briefing is absolutely vital. This is not really something that applies to the commercial operations, but for those of us GA pilots, it can be very intimidating if you're a 400-hour PIC and you've got somebody flying with you who's got a couple of thousand hours. If you're the pilot in command, you're the pilot in command. Make sure there's absolutely no ambiguity on that. And of course, understanding would not be complete without a mention of NOTAMs. Everybody knows where to find them. There are lots of ways other than the official channels to decode them, but they come thick and fast. So especially with the circumstances surrounding COVID, make sure that you are up to speed with everything before you get somewhere and find that you can't clear customs at Uppington, for example. Number 6, synergize. Again, not one of my favorite words. Basically, this just means working together. Use your airmanship to build teamwork. Work with other pilots if you're flying into an uncontrolled field. A little bit of courtesy goes an awful long way to make sure that everybody remains safe and gets to do what they need to do. Especially, guys, student pilots often really appreciate the courtesy of somebody not cutting in front of them. So let's try and look out for one another out there. I also would like just to mention type clubs. It's a very useful way of building up a lot of knowledge in a very short space of time. For example, there's the Cirrus Owners and Pilots Association. There's a Beechcraft type club, Piper. There's the Cessna Pilots Association. Make use of all of those resources. And last, but very definitely not least, seek out a mentor. Seek out somebody that you can pick up the phone to if you're not sure of the weather. And if you're not sure of whether or not you should be making a flight, find somebody that you can fly with from time to time who is not necessarily an instructor, but has got a bit more experience than you, either in your aircraft or in the type of flying that you do, and learn. It can keep things very interesting. Last and not least, this is the upward spiral. This is what Covey calls sharpen your saw. In other words, the center of all of this is you. And in order to build your habits and make sure that you remain effective, you've got to look after yourself. If you don't have your medical or you don't feel up to flying, none of the rest of it matters. And we've spoken extensively in the other webinars about self-care, long-term growth and learning. And I'm just mentioning that for completeness. I quite like the glider upward spiral illustration, because that just shows that we build on everything that comes before. And last, but certainly not least, the best safety investment you can make is in training yourself. It's not spending money on a new GPS. It's not upgrading your panel. It's not some fancy app for your iPad. Spend some time with an instructor. Find somebody that you can learn a new skill from and use that to grow. And finally, just again, the Mayday details. If anybody needs them, please make use of them. So Frans, back to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ari. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think it's all things we've, common sense things. But as Brian Wolford said, he said briefly stated, airmanship is aeronautical common sense, and I think that's quite funny. Yeah, absolutely. But it's very necessary for us to go over these things, and I know it's repetition, and with these kind of webinars, I feel like we almost always preach to the choir. The guys who come to these webinars, who join us, they're the guys who are doing it right. They're the guys who are thinking about it. So I think on that, let me put out a little bit of challenge to every person watching. So firstly, thanks for joining us. I mean, we know you are the safe guys out there, and the guys that always do your best to get to the other side alive, which is really the #1 prize. But here's a little challenge. So all we need from you is the next time you see a little email coming through for these webinars, or you get a little SMS, or it's on one of your WhatsApp groups, all you need to do is just get one of your buddies, one of your flying friends, to join us the next time with you. That's all you need to do. Just the one guy. And it could be the guy that's just as safe as you, or it could be, the runt in the WhatsApp group that you're just kind of waiting to make a mistake and kill himself in an airplane. We don't really matter which one it is. But yeah, just bring one of your friends along. We'll double up the viewership. We'll double up the amount of people we can reach and get the message to, and really help someone out there. Ari, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. I thought it was great to go through some of those basic points. Very lucky. Cheers, man. Thank you. Next up, without further ado, is Lauren Smith, all the way from beautiful Cape Town. Lauren is from the South African Weather Services, and I've known Lauren for a couple of years. She's always helping us out with all the speed rallies and President's Trophy air races and all these kind of things to give us proper weather updates in the morning with the briefings, which obviously really helps you plan your altitudes for the race for the day. She's definitely helped a lot of us out, and Lauren's going to be chatting to us about in-flight weather. Lauren, what's this in-flight weather thing you talk about?
Yeah, so let me get me my screen shared here with everyone.
So just so you guys know, Lauren's got a friend there that I said she should never invite again, and apparently this friend is streaming at the same time, so there might be a little bit of jaggers in her presentation. But now it's not her fault. It's these pesky friends. Lauren, we look forward to listening to you.
Yeah, so again, thank you. It's a big pleasure, and I'm always very excited to be part of this team and to be able to share what I can give to you guys. And I also learn a lot from everyone else. I'd just like to touch a little bit on the previous webinar that we had, the IMC to VMC, which is still in-flight weather. And I know it's more rules for our pilots, but it's not just rules and regulations and things that you can put aside. It's for your safety, and it has purpose. So it's a good thing to remember at your certain altitudes, that if you are flying 30,000 feet or rather 30,000 feet, where your distances of your certain cloud types should be, and also to remember that if you are inside control zones, that your rules do change. So pre-flight to en route, it's all about the planning. Back to Ari's presentation, those P's. are very, very important. So your meteorological briefing, it determines your forecast and the actual weather conditions of your route. You either will get it in your pre-flight planning paperwork or with a phone call to us at the weather office. So what does it comprise of? It's your forecast winds at your cruising levels, your temperatures at your cruising levels, your dew point depression, your weather conditions such as your clouds. Your cloud types is also quite significant to know, your visibility, as well as your precipitation types that you can then expect. Also your associated turbulence, your regions of turbulence, and then your icing. Inversion layers are also very important to know. And if there is an inversion layer, it's always good to ask what is the maximum surface temperature needed for your inversion then to break. And that will then also help you a little bit in your timing of when you want to take off, or rather not to take off. And also then obtain your synoptic charts, your indication of where your high and low pressures are. I'd like to share a quick video, and while I play this, I'd like you all to just to think to yourselves, how would you recover from this? Or what was the gap in the planning for this pilot? And what would you do?
Runway 35, clear for takeoff.
The sky is overcast and the visibility poor. That reported 8-kilometer visibility looks more like 3, and you can't judge the height of the cloud. Your altimeter says you're at 1,500 feet, but your map tells you there's local terrain as high as 1,200 feet. There might even be a tower nearby, because you're not sure just how far off course you are. But you've flown into worse weather than this, so you press on. You find yourself unconsciously easing back just a bit on the controls to clear those none-too-imaginary towers. With no warning, you're in the soup. You peer so hard into the milky white mist that your eyes hurt. You fight the feeling in your stomach. You swallow, only to find your mouth dry. Now you realize you should have waited for better weather. The meeting was important, but not that important. Somewhere a voice is saying, you should have turned back. You now have 178 seconds to live. Your aircraft feels on an even keel, but your compass turns slowly. You push your rudder pedal and add pressure to the controls to stop the turn, but this feels unnatural, so you quickly return the controls to their original position. That feels better, but now your compass is turning a little faster and your airspeed is increasing slightly. You scan your instrument panel for help, but you don't find any. It all looks unfamiliar. You're sure this is just a bad spot. You'll break out in a few minutes. But you don't have a few minutes. You now have 100 seconds to live. You glance at your altimeter and are shocked to see it unwinding. You're already down to 1,200 feet. Instinctively, you pull back on the controls, but the altimeter still unwinds. The engine is into the red, and the airspeed's almost there too. You have 45 seconds to live. Now you're sweating and shaking. There must be something wrong with the controls. Pulling back only moves that airspeed indicator deep into the red. You can hear the wind tearing at the aircraft. You have 10 seconds to live. Suddenly, you see the ground. The trees rush up at you. You can see the horizon if you turn your head far enough, but it's at an unusual angle. You're almost inverted. You open your mouth to scream.
Unfortunately, it's a black screen, and we all don't want that. We don't want that ending. So it shouldn't end there. The pre-flight planning, it shouldn't end at you reading your weather briefing and going forward. So how do we continue this in-flight awareness and in-flight weather awareness. Luckily, there is technology out there that does help you to maintain the weather awareness. Also, in-flight monitoring, as in literally looking outside the window, will help you to make your critical decisions. For example, if you are flying into a turbulent pocket, or you have received an air met, hopefully ahead of time, and now you need to make that decision of, are you going to fly through your turbulent pocket, around it, or under it? What is your decision? And also remember that weather conditions do change quickly. Get updated information. Use your tablet, if it's even so small. Try and get your satellite images up there, or radar. We do know that a lot of our aircraft these days are equipped with good weather radar. Please use them. Also, you're continuously comparing or monitoring your experience to what your briefing gave you. And maybe, is there other aircraft in your vicinity? Can you contact them and maybe advise them on that turbulence pocket that you flew through, or incoming low cloud? Or maybe they tell you about a turbulent pocket. Also, that comes down to airmanship again, and that links to that very well. ATC is also there, and they do have a direct link to us in the weather office to be able to help you guys with those split weather condition decisions and changes. Also, your observations is also very, very important. And feedback. Pilot reports are something that is lacking. For example, I'm actually in my final year of my master's degree in turbulence, and I need pilot reports to be able to help you in the long run. If you're not helping me with feedback about the weather, I can't help you. I can't then make a better forecast, more skillful and more accurate without your feedback. So it's very important. I know it's more paperwork, but it's very, very needed. So where can you find your in-flight weather? As I've said, always look outside. So your observations, we have your metas. And it's also good to remember that if you do hover your mouse over the coded part or section, it then decodes it for you. So it will then give, in layman's terms, a short description of what the code means. Also, you have your radar there on the side. Also, a satellite, you've got a tab for species as well as webcams, which comes in quite handy, especially there in the northeastern parts by the escarpment, Nelspruit and Hoedspruit, where that low cloud and that fog just loves to persist all day and every day. So it's nice to be able to see there by the webcam, those mountains, ranges there, if the clouds are dissipating or not. And this is your synoptic chart that's also available on the website. It's under your Aerospot tab, and you can then see where your high pressures are and low pressures are. And which also is a nice indicator, is you can see, you can see where your tighter gradients are. So tighter pressure gradients mean stronger winds. Also, back to your winds, you've got your block format and your bar format, excuse me, and also your SIG weather chart. So your SIG weather chart is a nice indicator of your current weather for your flight planning. So your block charts look like that, and then you also have in your bar format. So obviously warnings, and we have advisories. Luckily, we don't have volcanoes right next to South Africa, so the ash and volcano advisories don't apply to us very often, but it's good to know that they are there. And you can also import your departure list, which means you can create your own pre-flight weather document, where you can then choose your route and choose your available weather information that you would like to be compiled. So we also have a graphic SIGMET and AirMet tab, which is very nice. You can zoom in and zoom out while you are in this window, and it gives you the exact coordinates of the polygon. And here is embedded TS, which is thunderstorms in this region, and it tells you exactly where it is. And here we've got some severe turbulence, moderate turbulence, and so forth. Also, another place where you can find weather updates is a platform called Windy TV, which is very, very nice. You can compare models. So it runs currently 4 models. It is GFS, which is a global model, which means it has a resolution of 22 kilometers. So if we think of cameras, if we talk about 22 kilometer resolution or 22 by 22 pixels, that's quite not a good picture, but in models, it's the other way around. So the smaller the number, the more detail and the better prediction or capability of the model. So then we have ECMWF, which is next, which is 9 kilometer. We have the Mitri Blue. And then also there's a new German model available called Icon. And which is nice, it's got all sorts of functions here on the side. You can click to view your total cloud cover, only high cloud, only low cloud. There's a fog function, all sorts of things. And you can also now see satellites, which is also very great. You've got 3 different types of satellites. IFR, which is temperature related, which will then give you a good indication of clouds. Visual, which also uses clouds. Yeah, well, you'll be able to see clouds a bit better with that. Yeah, and that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lauren. Just out of interest's sake, what would you generally, in terms of weather, so let's say a guy's flying 210 or 182 from Cape Town to Joburg in your average summer's day, what would be the kind of things that if you had to point out 2 or 3 things for the guy to really look out for, even if it's really obvious, what would you say?
Well, it's a nice summer's day from Cape Town to Joburg. There's a lot of turbulence, a lot of clear air turbulence, especially if you just go over the first escarpment, over the Klein Karoo. So Sutherland, Colfinia region, there's a lot of turbulence always. So always just be aware of that. And then your winds, strong northwesterly winds that also push over, that can cause directional shear. So it's not always speed shear, but a directional shear that also then takes place and starts pushing you to the side. And then your thunder showers, those nice, beautiful thermal thunder showers that tend to just develop on OR's runway all of a sudden. So yeah, I would rather always just be prepared to be able to go to Insurer, for example, if need be, for those type of conditions.
Okay, lekker. Thanks. I thought I'd just throw that in there just as a little bit of a conversation piece. Thanks,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Big pleasure.
Guys, we're halfway through. We're going to be moving swiftly along. Just wanted to remind you again that we've got a Q&A section. If you just open it at the bottom, you can ask us questions. We're very happy to answer you towards the end, or if one of the panelists wants to pick it up as we go along, happy to do that. That's why we're here. We are here to also have a bit of an interactive chat with you guys. So it's not just us talking and imagining things that are important. We'd love to have your feedback as well. So guys, next up, Kobus Terin. Very little introduction needed. Kobus is an absolute, I almost want to say living legend in aviation. From the Air Force days to SAA, and at the moment serving at ALPA SA. And he's going to be recapping us on hazardous altitudes and your approach to safety and airmanship, which I think all blends in very nicely of what we've been talking about so far. Kobus, goeienaand. Welkom Thanks for joining us again. It's always amazing to have you. I love your presentations. Can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, Franz, thanks so much. Good evening, everybody. It's always nice sitting here, and again, I look through the names, so welcome everyone. Just a quick, Lauren put it so nicely. I see the latest, if I can call it average from getting vertigo or spatial disorientation to hitting the ground if you don't do the right stuff is 68 seconds. So yeah, you're not much time to live. So without any further ado, when we started this year with resilience, and then we moved to mental well-being to see, well, if you're not mental well, how can you be resilient? And then we went to the perfect storm. And this is all at home with all the accidents that happened for those who went back flying. And we started looking from IMC to VFR, COVID to starting and flying again. And I remember last time we did checklists at home, and those checklists are still valid. What can I check to make sure I'm ready to fly? So a lot of you lucky guys are already there flying. The question is now, so what now? How do we keep it safe? So, and I heard this the other day in the car. It's one of my favorites. It shows you how old I am. But Uriah Heep's, look at yourself, 1971. And I realized, well, this is something we need to do. For a long time now, we've been looking after ourselves. Now it's time to look at ourselves and just see how we're doing things. Are we as sharp as we think we are? Are we as sharp as we should be? So when I saw this CAT Leader Forum Skills Decay just recently, Skills Decay, it caught my attention, and I looked at it and I thought I'll share a little bit with it, because they were saying, yeah, look, it's not only the crews, but for all involved in aviation, there's a definite skills decay. And it's internationally, if you take the long time that we sat through this COVID lockdown, rehabilitation, you name it what you want. Quickly, I'm not going to spend too much time, and please, everybody, if you want questions, we need some more explanations. We don't have the time to go into too much depth. It's always there at any time. So competencies will decay. It's for everybody, not only pilots, it's everybody, even the regulator. Time is needed to bring all on the same top level. Unfortunately, the regulator's been working throughout the year, and so they're more sharp than what the pilots and the crews are. But remember, the marshal, the ATC, everybody out there is a level of decay, and we need to catch up very quickly. Do we need all competencies at top level to fly safely? For sure. I definitely think so. So some can be retrained in a simulator, some don't have simulators. So you need to make plans and to adjust to do that. Resilient behavior. So look for alternative ways of mitigating the gaps. And this brings us back. Look at yourself. Where do I fall short, and how will I fix this? A lot of times, people, it's up to you. Your own health is your own problem. Your own happiness is actually your own problem, if I can call it. It's not a problem, but it's up to you. It's entirely up to you. And we have to look after ourselves. There goes with handling. Now, this is more in the cockpit. Standard is important. SOPs. How many times we have to say this? A lot of people, the handling skills, they say it wasn't, yeah, it was okay. But after 6 months plus, yeah, it's not the same again. Right? It's not like riding a bicycle. So it may require some brain usage, because you need more brains now to do things that you used to do, and constantly you're flying. We know the brain is saturated, and you don't get to do what you should be doing. The old standing operating procedures. I don't have to say much more on SOPs apart from just follow it. They're prime importance, of course. There's the good reason why they are there. So please use them. It is there for everybody. So let's use them. You need more thinking. It helps you a lot of stuff. Changing procedures increases difficulty. Yes, anything that changes. A lot of guys also look, for instance, many of my friends, they say, hey, they're moving to other airlines or they're moving to other types of flying. It's a new ballgame. And now you actually have the rusty pilot, remember that? So yeah, there we go. We need to do something. Then I found this plane and pilot, keep your flying skills sharp. So here it says, even if you fly a lot, sharpening your piloting skills doesn't happen by accident. Excuse me. So here's what you need to do and how to make it happen. It's basically 3 steps. Use it or lose it. And here we're talking about hand flying skills. And it is true that sometimes, your skills are decaying if you're chasing the instrument so much rather than anticipating them. You've actually lost it. And look, that scan. If you don't practice it every day, it doesn't come easily. And it doesn't help you go and practice in your Land Rover or Toyota. I mean, it's not the same thing. So we must constantly strive for perfection. They say there's no such thing as non-precision. I know everybody knows what a non-precision approach is. What they're trying to tell us here is we need to seek perfection at all times. So we need to practice hand flying and staying in an actual touch with the airplane to allow a bonding that wouldn't occur otherwise. I have to read it not to get it wrong. And isn't that so true? And isn't that perhaps one of the causal factors, or the spate of accidents that happen, that the guys are not really with the aircraft anymore? And I mean, it takes some time to get back into the flying, to get to know your aircraft, your limitations, aircraft limitations. There's always a lot about that. So they say, whether it's done in the clear or with electronic guidance, no matter what approach you're doing, always try and do it in precision and strive for precision. And especially when you're flying on your own. I mean, nobody's going to watch it go 10 feet out, 5 knots, 10 knots here or there. And it becomes a deviation of norms. What is that? A deviance, normalization of deviance, where, nobody's watching. So, what's 10 feet? What's 100 foot here? What's it there? And soon you'll find it's more than 100 foot, it's 1,000 or something like that. So back to basics. If you don't know your settings and your attitudes, how are you going to do that? So a lot of concentration, a lot of work to be done. Now, this is stay on the line. Isn't this so simple? It says here, even if you just stay on the line when taxiing out, because it's there for a reason. They didn't do ill effort to put the taxi line there. It's for you to stay on it. And it's a small thing. It's like getting up in the morning, make your bed. And a lot of people don't grasp it. You have to get this thing, it's like a gyro, you have to get it running, otherwise it's going to topple. So stay on the line. Again, it goes about precision. Without that practice, we lose things. And again, when you're on your own, you tend to be a bit slack about that. It goes about attitude, and a lot has been said about the attitudes. For going a bit fast, please apologize. We're running against time. There's so many things I would love to share. Now we get to this thing called Startle Factor. What I call it, it is panic mode. Now, a good friend and colleague of mine, Mike Boyer, always says, if you panic slowly, because then the mind has got time to think and readjust itself. There it says, general aviation, a lot of it's because of inappropriate responses to unexpected events. It is true, you cannot sit and try and think of what can happen next. Your engine stops, okay? So deal with it. You cannot overthink it either. But training and preparation can reduce startle factor response time. I saw some of the comments, training. Training is the golden thread through in safety. So currency and startle factor, how to beat it. There's my friend, the submariner from the Hudson River, the Sally Sullenberg. Skills degrade over time, no matter how good you are. And if a man like his stat, you can say that, then everybody of us can pay attention and listen. This also says when you're not current, you are more likely to fall victim to startle factor. Startle factor may decay action or initiate inappropriate action in response to an emergency. Now, here's the catch. What do you do, or what don't you do? So a list of things he's put up. Understand what is happening in your brain when something goes bang. Now, we are hardwired for this thing they call fight or flight reflex. And I don't have to tell you much more about it, but it's taking up valuable time. But what is worse than that is doing the wrong thing. So better to sit, relax, understand what is happening. And it says here as well, it's so wide into our brains, it's a physical and mental response to something unexpected. Now, we all know the engines can fail. We all know we can have bird strikes, but to have 2 bird strikes in both engines, when you only have 2 engines, that is quite a bang, and that's the startle factor. And crews train for that. How do we train for it? Well, basically, the best thing is in the simulator. So effectively, for a short time, our thought process are hijacked. It's basically what happens. And we could get into a vicious cycle of bad decisions in a hurry. And that's what happens. So what do they say? First, don't act. At least not right now. Take a deep breath. Sit in your hands. Slow down. I think you've heard it a lot. So remember, our skills are not, our skills are, we're not as sharp as we used to be. So we have to pay attention to this. You see if I'm missing anything here. So you have to understand what is actually happening before you can actually do anything to fix it. Okay. And there are very few emergencies that requires immediate attention. Okay. Or action. So bear with that. Take a deep breath and see what's happening. Then the last one, be ready and use your RMM. Now that's not that a thing in Matrix here in the front. That's a risk management model. Now, a lot of people might think, who is she? It's time that we talk and discuss and think about risk management models, because it guides you, your thinking. How much time do you have? And that it's another thing that will guide you. So be ready. remain alert. Think about what may happen. I'm not saying you fly there the whole time thinking what's going to happen, because 80% of the time it's not going to happen. But when something happens, it's not, oh my word, I never expected that. So yes, be ready. I can show you something more about that, how to beat it. And that's basically control your response. Aviate, navigate, communicate. And then look at that. This is called, I think it's DODAR. DODAR, yes, there's one. Many others. There's assess, action, manage, review, modify. SANO uses the time for EDEC. It's a lot of things. If you don't have it, please speak to somebody. If something happens, don't just barge in and go. Even on fast jet aircraft, you have less time, but there we also had risk management module or risk management modules to guide your thinking, because the startle effect is worse than COVID. Another one is WASP. Wait a second, act simply, speak up, prioritize. I think even Ari mentioned a lot of those things was actually woven into this as well. So nothing new, just something to think about again. And then again, what else can help? Now, we've had this as a theme for a year, I think in 2016, the hazardous attitudes. Now, this is something that a lot of people, yes, they know that, but where do I fit in? Take a look at yourself. Where do you fit in here? And you thought, no. Impulse, niet. And vulnerability, who me? Can't happen to me. Hold my beer and watch this. Macho, you see, and resignation. And they're the antidotes. And if you can just put hazardous thought patterns, you can put hazardous attitudes, put it onto the web, and you'll find all this stuff. So please, there's not enough time to discuss. So if all else fails, there's 3 things in life that you should remember, and I'll get to that now. Know your hazardous attitudes, know your limitations. Know your limitations of the aircraft. Is it safe? Is it legal? So if it's safe and it is legal, then the third, this is the 3 rules. Is it safe? Yes. Is it legal? Yes. Then have fun whilst doing it. But the fun is not number 1, it's always number 3. So make sure it's safe, it's legal, and let's have fun. This is fun, but this is not safe and this is not legal. Right. Then we had your approach. And actually your approach was more about your approach towards safety, your approach towards life. And this was in the year that, I think 2017, that we've had all those runway excursions. Now it's 2021 and we're still having runway excursions, mostly in the airlines, but also stabilized approaches. Man, that is the stuff for the people that fly airlines. It's not for general aviation. It's so wrong. And also back to precision. What you do today in your Cessna is what you're going to do today in a few years' time in an Airbus or Airbus or a Boeing. So please, if you're heading that way, if you're just going to fly your own aircraft, take heed as well. It is very important. So if it's not right, go around. And I know this, a lot of people say, yeah, we have to report when we go around. If you have to report it, it's purely for statistics, just to see maybe there's something wrong with the approach or the arrival or something like that. If the company says, well, no, you shouldn't go around, then please give us a call. Definitely something to take up. So the flight crew's inability to assess or manage the aircraft energy conditions during approach is often cited as a cause of unstabilized approaches. And I promise you, all these runway excursions you find is bad weather, and they were hot and high, they were, it's the same old story all the time, and we have to break the chain, and that is by your approach to safety and go around culture. Then, I'm so glad I've heard this now from Ari, I've heard it from Lauren as well, airmanship. Now, the teacher asked Maria, on this map, can you find me Alaska, please? And she's looking, I said, aha, there's Alaska. I said, France, who discovered Alaska? I said, no, Maria did. And this is sometimes what happens with airmanship. It's not for you, it's for someone else. And Maria found Alaska, discovered Alaska, no one else. Very short in this, we had a whole year with airmanship. And basically there's 3 things, KSA, knowledge, skills, attitude. Now, knowledge comes with time, skills comes with time. And those 2 put together gives you what they call experience, okay? The problem is the attitude one. A bad attitude, a poor attitude, you're not going to get the knowledge or the skills. It's going to take a long time. And sometimes if the attitude is not very good, you don't have time to gain knowledge and skills, okay? This thing about attitude, you can speak for hours and hours about attitude, because attitude equates to discipline. There we go. Ari has mentioned this. It's good judgment, consistent, well-developed skills to accomplish flight objective. Ari, thanks for putting focus on that. Discipline is the foundation of airmanship. So we have to keep it into our little brains, or mine anyway, your big brains, professionalism is maintaining the right attitude. And yeah, thanks, Ari, for this as well. Bad attitude, not going to give you skills or knowledge. It's not going to be good for your health. All right, so don't let this happen to you. It's not good for your health, not good for your pockets, not good for your family. So there's only one way to become an old and bold pilot, and that's to remember all these things. So in conclusion, very quick, take a look at yourself. There are no shortcuts to experience. It doesn't take 9 women 1 month to have a baby. It takes 1 woman 9 months to have a baby. I mean, that's science. There's no shortcut to safety either. Standards are there for a reason. SOPs are there for a reason. The most important safety device in any aircraft is a well-trained, experienced, and disciplined pilot. Now, if you take a look at it yourself, is that you? If that is not you, I think we must go back to COVID, go back to mental well-being, and start from the beginning. But it's not all doom and gloom. Enjoy what you're doing, do it safe, efficiently, and have fun whilst doing it. Any questions, please don't be shy to ask. Remember, CRM, seek or use your resources, and you're most welcome. I might not be a resource, but I might know somebody that can help you as well with whatever it is. I know somebody at Mayday, I know people that are very clever. So don't be shy to contact us. Remember, ALPA is not only there for airline pilots, it's the national voice of all pilots. Fran, thank you very much.
Thank you, Cobus. Very informative and detailed as always. I love it. We could definitely see the Air Force coming through in all your presentations. I really enjoy it. I wanted to just quickly ask you, we just had one question, and I mean, it's really just off the top of your head stuff, things you can think of, and it's a common, it's a common question. It's something that comes up, well, especially for me quite often. Chris Reedman just quickly asked, what catches pilots out mostly and their common errors? Now, just remember we're talking about GA here. What would you say, Cobus?
Well, we're on the gas at the moment, the General Aviation's Safety Strategy Group, and we're looking at trends and stuff. But, this is the anomaly in aviation. And usually the common problem here is pilot error. Man, please, when I hear that word, I get so cross. I'm not saying pilots don't cause accidents. There's a lot of things that comes up, control flight into terrain, what we had now, especially in the beginning of the year. So that's become a major issue. Discipline has been cited as issues, but these are all not causal factors. These are actually things that happened. That's the why. That's what happened. We need to know why. Now, a few things that I've cited now off my head very quickly, and somebody mentioned, I quickly had a look, is ironically, most of the accident happened to not general aviation, what do you call leisure flying? There's a nice word for that. No, it's well-geared commercial operations with very experienced pilots. Now back to the statement right in the beginning with mental well-being. Were they in touch with the aircraft? I'm not saying they don't know the aircraft. I'm just saying they haven't flown for a while. Exactly the thing about the skills I talk about is exactly that. And then you take a mental well-being. If somebody tells me in South Africa today that he's not sort of stressed or he hasn't have any anxiety or depression, I want to know what you're smoking because I'd like to have that as well. And I think, France, that's the overtone, like we call. Remember the perfect storm. We mentioned a lot of those things. There's a lot of things happening today, and now we've had this sitting on the ground for a year. The lack of security. You don't know. You're having flying today, but you're going to lose your job tomorrow. So it's a bit quick, a bit vague, but there's many more to what meets the eye.
Yeah, that's that Swiss cheese effect there. It's always the one small little thing leads to another small little thing leads to another small little thing, and something I actually just read. So after being asked that question, I just googled some examples, and something I quite enjoyed is this one guy said, "If it's illegal or it feels naughty, don't do it." Because you get that feeling, we all have common sense and we all know the difference between what's safe and what's unsafe. And I just thought that, if it feels naughty, don't do it. I think that's probably very applicable to a lot of guys. But thanks, Cobus. Always appreciate your input and brilliant presentation as always. Look forward to the next one. Thanks, Cobus. Okay, guys. So last but absolutely not least is Sankey White. Now, if you've been around aviation at all, you probably know Sankey pretty well, better somewhere at an event or two. And Sankey is from SASA. So she's the person that you want to phone when worst comes to worst and they need to come fetch you on the side of the mountain. Not that I have any personal experience with that or anything. It's a myth. And she's going to be discussing the little things we've forgotten while we were grounded so long. Sankey, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I hope your electricity is all 100% and you can hear us 5 out of 5.
I'm a very happy person tonight. Thank you very much.
Yay. Sankey, look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Okay, so tonight I'm just so grateful to be here and so grateful to have electricity. And just for everybody, still SASA, South African Search and Rescue Organization, and we still join hands so others may live. And it's quite amazing how we haven't seen each other for a long time and how these presentations just talk to each other. It's amazing. Aviate, navigate, communicate. And I think this is so profound. For today, deal only with what's most important and right in front of you. Be present, embrace it, just fly the aeroplane. I think that is so important. And everybody said tonight how important that is. For me, obviously, guys, aviate, navigate, but sometime please communicate, because I know there's a lot of work when things go wrong. I work with it every single day. But the sooner I know that you're in trouble, the sooner I can do something about it. When you go Mayday, 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 and that's not a sin. It's not a sin to shout Mayday. It's not a sin to shout Pan, Pan. Because guess what happens when you go Mayday, Mayday, Mayday? There's a little haxie and the gifappeltjies to your rescue. Always, 24/7. So in any emergency, people, I want you to remember, sometimes we forget these things. 7700 emergency, shout Mayday, shout Pan. 7600 when you've lost communication. Lost communication to me it really, really concerns me, because why can't we talk in today's life? I mean, there's more than one radio in most aircraft. Please, people, and remember when you squawk emergency or lost comms or anything, this will be actioned immediately by ATC and it will be reported to us, the ARCC and my team, and we will monitor your emergency and action accordingly. And I'm not going to ask you for a report. I'm really, really just going to watch you and make sure that you land safely. So what is really important for search and rescue when we talk about the communicate? You really don't have to tell us a story. Tell me who you are, where you are, what's wrong, and what's your intentions. I'm happy with that, because from that information, I can start responding to the correct area and start looking for the right person. I need to share this with you. You know what it feels like in my world when you go, Mayday, 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 engine failure, I'm going down. And you hear this in your mind all the time, but you don't know who it is. And you've got to now try and sort figure out who might have an engine problem or who it was. So people, please just give us some indication of who you are. It's really, really important. I want to share a case study with you. And the reason why I'm doing this, I think we need to understand what goes into when you shouted that Mayday. This case study was for a pilot that left Wonderboom for either Plett or J-Bay or George, depending who you asked. And he did not file a flight plan and he did not arrive where he was supposed to go. So the day when he was flying down to the coast, you can see the weather picture was really, really, really not a nice picture. Lauren will tell you, don't do this. And obviously it's not your friend, it will kill you. But the area that he was flying over was the Baviaanskloof. And I mean, if you really You've been to the Baviaanskloof. When I did that search, it was so bad we couldn't even put people on foot on the mountain because they could not walk there. You had to fly wherever you want to be. Really, really difficult. So people, sometimes when things go wrong, it becomes difficult. For me, I'm lucky. I've got specialized search and rescue units. So when we go into areas where there's no communication, I've got Hamnet. They are information and communication technology specialists. I don't actually think specialist is a good word. They are the gurus of all gurus when it comes to communication. Then we've got MSA, which is the mountain search and rescue specialists. We've got off-road rescue units, which are rough terrain specialists, and obviously force multipliers. Then we've got the Canine Search and Rescue Association and Groundstar, which is our canine search and rescue specialized dogs. And they are just unbelievable. So remember, when we go into a search and rescue operation where these units are required, we deploy them to wherever they need to go to. And sometimes they are away from home for 2 or 3 days, but they don't mind. You know, it is all for joining hands so others may live. On that specific, in this specific case, gladly, we went and we sat the entire night, and I was just following a primary radar plot. And the red you can see is where we picked it up, and we had to watch it in real time because there was obviously not radar. And then obviously things will come in of sightings and where people would hear it and all sorts of things. And that's all the intelligence that one needs to work with to make the picture. That's just an example of a day's flying, where you have to go and investigate all these little information that was gathered. And then you need to analyze. In this specific case, because the terrain was so bad and the weather was so bad, I decided that we will take a chopper and we will take a fixed wing and we will recreate what we saw on radar. And you can see there, Rescue 615 attempts to recreate the radar plot, route adjusting for terrain, approaching at 4,600 feet. Rescue 615 climbs to 5,600 feet to avoid terrain. And then obviously it climbs to 6,100 feet. Faced with terrain, he turns left, passing within 600 meters of the wreck, but 600 meters higher and directly into the morning sun. In this case, we went over the wreck 16 times because the weather was so bad that we had to take opportunities to fly, which would not have been really conducive to search, but you had no other option than to fly when you could fly, because you could not use ground resources. In this case, we had a report of an oil slick, and I thought, wow, I've got you, buddy, I've got you. And the oil slick obviously gave me a door, a jerry can, and a broken boat, and nothing else. But obviously, we look at these things. We were lucky in this search because we had people like Tony van Vliet and Derek Hopkins and those guys flying for us. And they don't miss a thing. When we look at that, at night you would sit and you would do a lot of going back watching these things, because there were 26 in the area of these similar gorges. And because of the shadows, when it was flown, you had to go back and check, you know, is there something in there that we might have missed? And then you look at those type of things, and it's a crash site or a lightning strike. And that is your crash site 8 days later. And the only way you could see it is because the plants were dying because of the fuel. And that was sadly a 210. So what is really important for us? Guys, please, please, please. Today it's so easy. I don't know why not. File a flight plan. It's your insurance policy. If we have a flight plan, we know what you were intending to do, and it's easy to search for you. I've got the link there, file to fly, at atns.co.za. Then when you'd have filed the flight plan, people, please activate that flight plan. Because a flight plan that's not activated means nothing. If you can't get hold of the radio to activate, phone and say, please activate my flight plan. Also remember to please cancel your search and rescue. because every case of a non-cancellation of search and rescue is treated as a potential search and rescue operation. So the minute we have this non-cancellation of search and rescue and we can't get hold of who we need to get hold of, we will already put these resources that you saw, Hamnet and Oru and MSAR and those guys, we will already put them on a form of standby, because when we need to fly, we need to fly. Then also people, and Lauren has said it, she's shown you the horrible, horrible video. Don't fly in bad weather. You might get away with it again and again, until that one day when I'm going to pick you up on a mountain slope. That is not fair. It's not fair to your family. Kobus said it, it's not fair to you. Okay, what's more important? Please, when you fly, tell somebody where you are really going. And I'm going back to that case study where to one person, or to the one part of the family was going to George, to the other part of the family was going to Plett, and to the other part of the family he was going to JB, because then he didn't have to file a flight plan. That should not be a reason why you don't file flight plans, guys, please. Then when you do file, please file a reachable contact number specifically after hours. We really sometimes, specifically the students, guys, please, if you put your school's after a normal office number there, it gets difficult to get hold of you at night. And remember, when we have your phone number, we can do other things when you are lost. We can see where you are on WhatsApp Live and those type of things. So the ARCC team is a very small team, but they are incredibly creative. Make sure your aircraft register is a true reflection of the colors and markings of your aircraft. Please, people. We get so many times when something goes wrong and you're not looking for what the register says you're looking for. Make sure that important modifications to your aircraft is easily accessible. For example, when you've got long range tanks, because we work out on your fuel. Here should be the X marks the spot when you ran out of fuel, and then you've got another 4 hours to go, type thing. ELTs and PLBs, so important. Please register your ELTs. It's the form CA9102 is on the CIA website. If you fly with a PLB, please mail the MRCC to send you the form, and they will register your PLB as an aviation PLB. Please, people, it's important that we have that information. Otherwise, it becomes another new search. Okay, if you find yourself in a place with no cellular phone coverage and you cannot cancel search and rescue, find anyone with a landline or a hotel with free Wi-Fi and make a WhatsApp call to the duty SMC. It's easier today, I think. Please give your family or your loved ones a basic search and rescue briefing. They should know to contact when they're in doubt of your safety, and give them the search and rescue numbers. Those numbers should be published like a cheap Sunday newspaper. Guys, please. And we will never, ever say, why are you phoning me at 2 o'clock in the morning? We are used to it. But if you're not sure, please ask. If you find yourself in trouble, talk to ATC, any ATC. If you can't remember a frequency, or you can only remember one frequency, shout Mayday on it. They will deal with it. It's not a sin. And an emergency is an emergency. And remember, my goal is to save a life, because that's the biggest gift that we can give anybody, is to give their family member back to them alive. Maybe sometimes hurt, but we can live with that. Please amend your flight plan details if necessary. People, sometimes we get a flight plan and you were going there, but now you're not going there anymore, but you're not telling anybody. And you don't arrive, or you're late, and then do you see my little crystal ball? Then I need to get my little crystal ball to try and figure out what you were thinking. Stay within your own abilities. It's not a contest, guys. If that airplane's too fast for you, it's going to kill you. So train to become the faster airplane flyer, but if it's not in your abilities, don't do that, and don't attempt unplanned maneuvers. Kobus said that it's not necessary. If you want to do maneuvers, go and ask an instructor that's going to train you how to do it. Once again, please stay out of bad weather. The weather changes incredibly quickly these days. I don't understand why. It's quite interesting, and I'm watching it. It's the same like Lauren said with Middelburg. That place is just sometimes so bad in the mist and the stuff in the air. Be careful, people, please. Use your transponder, because sadly, I don't know, but if you look at my case study, if we did not have that transponder information, can you imagine how difficult that search would have been then? It would have taken another 8 days. And those poor families are in agony. Don't ever forget that. While you are missing, you don't have a SARC with us. We need to deal with your families, and they are broken. It's not easy. It's really, they don't deserve it. They allow you to fly. So it's the little things that's important. People, please stay current. And if you fly once in 6 months, are you really current? Technical difficulties. People don't, and Kobus went on that as well. And I think Ari as well, that said, I don't want to do the paperwork. I don't want to report this because I don't want to do the paperwork. So now you're flying this airplane and there's something wrong with it, and you don't report that difficulty, the technical difficulty, and 2 flights later somebody goes and they kill themselves because you did not report it. If an aircraft is not 100% technically sane and safe, there's something wrong with it, then we need to fix it. So please, guys, sometimes you might think it's small, but it might not be small. It might be something that's going to really, really cause trouble for somebody else. Practice I'm safe. Do we still do that, or are we sometimes far too arrogant to realize that we might not be I'm safe? We are all human. We are all going through very, very tough times. My heart goes out to you, and I keep you in my heart all the time. But if that question is no, or there's any doubt, then there is no doubt. Don't do it. Are you mentally or emotionally fit to fly? And then one of the things that I really please, guys, leave your computer or phone passwords with somebody you trust. Because when you go missing and you had an Apple phone and I can phone that phone and you're not answering it, I want to go mad. But unless we can get somebody who knows your passwords, we can't find your phone. And it's quite difficult. And the Americans don't understand that it's an emergency. You've got to actually go to court. So please just maybe put it somewhere where we can find it when we really need it. I hope we're never going to use it, but it might be a good idea. And that's me. People always there for you. You are very, very precious. You will always be. There's the 2 numbers. Those numbers are manned 24/7. And if they are by accident busy online, they divert to me. So there's no reason why you can't get hold of the Search and Rescue Center and talk. And if you're not sure, ask. I will always be there for you. Thanks very much, and stay safe.
Thank you. Okay, guys. So I think out of that, there's a lot of stuff said, and I think I'm going to say it again earlier. I believe you guys watching are, really are the converted. So just remember that one piece of homework for the next one to bring a friend with. And that number, Sankey, I don't know if you can go back to sharing your screen again, please, just so that we can all write down that number. You were a bit quick for me to take it down. But that number is incredibly important, guys. Please take out your cell phone right now. If you don't have it on there, put that number on. Make it, maybe don't call it standby SMC or duty SMC, because I promise you, when you are stressed out and the adrenaline's flowing and you are on that mountain, you're not going to remember how to find that. So make it, make it something that you will remember when you are a bit stressed out. So do you know who to phone? And that's, of course, if Sankey doesn't phone you first, which happened to me. So, they're so good that I had a little incident, and I think Sankey was probably the second person to phone me. I mean, no one had known we'd had an accident by then. So, but keep that with you. Obviously, if you need to be giving them updates throughout the time, and we could only do that because we had I almost said a TLB. What's the what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, it went off.
And ELT.
ELT, not a TLB. We weren't transporting a TLB in an airplane, I promise you. Would have made for a fun story, much better story, but no, it wasn't that. Okay, guys, let's quickly jump into the questions. Thanks so much for staying with us so far. I know we've gone over the time we normally do, but it's really good for us. You know, it means that you guys are engaged and that you're actually learning something, and that's what we're here for. One of the questions we had, which was also came with a big hello to Sankey from Mike Crowley, saying, also, do you guys rely on donations? I'll be happy to donate. Not at all. We have absolutely zero budget for this. We don't. None of the panelists charge a cent. We all do it out of our love for aviation, and I think we're all just trying in our small little way, trying to make a difference, really, leave the world a better place than what we got it at. I think so. So no, there's no donations. We don't have a donations pool. We don't want your money. We really don't want anything for this. And if one of you guys want his money, just PM him. But I'm okay. I'm okay with doing it the way we're doing it. Okay, some other questions. We got. I said Michael Port asked two, so I'll just leave it in the one. And guys, this is to all the panelists. If you feel like this fits, your criteria. I know the last one's definitely for Sankey, but if you feel like this is your area, jump in, answer it, please. Chris Reedman asked, isn't CFIT less of a problem now? We have GPS with color maps. Any takers?
I think, if I may quickly say, I'm sure it is, but now to say prove it, that'll be tough. But definitely your situational awareness is much improved, because your situational awareness with high ground, for instance, definitely. And a lot of guys now, they don't fly maps anyway. They fly everything on the what do you call these things, the iPads and that type of stuff, and it's all there. So from my son's experience, where he's flying with it, and I sat with a map, I sometimes looked at his iPad, and I must say, I think so, I believe so, but not everybody has that.
Yeah. Okay. One from Michael Port, if possible, let's discuss why a number of very experienced pilots died in aircraft accidents the first quarter of 2021, and hardly anyone called Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. And I think that's probably one of the key things that you guys are talking about right now in that, special unit. And what's kind of been the discussions? I mean, are you guys in early stages of the debate? Have you kind of come to some sort of an understanding, or are you just chatting about it?
You're referring to the gas?
Yes.
Yeah, it's early stage, if I may again, and there's a lot of focus groups, and unfortunately it takes a lot of time to get everything organized. And what Billy has asked there is a very good question, because like I said, it was amazing that you find that it's more the experienced guys that are having these accidents. And again, to find out exactly why, the 911, there's something happened there. The same with the two air tractors, it's very weird and strange, it looks like. And again, and I'll leave the Mayday part for Sankey, but again, I think most of these accidents was one of those, it just happened. And that didn't just happen. There wasn't much time to call Maydays and stuff. And when you're out there in the business, yeah, it's still a good question. I'll leave that for Sankey. But Billy's got a very good point there, and this is something we need to get into. Unfortunately, we have to rely and work with what we have from the accident investigations. And accident investigations, and I see Andre de Kock is also listening. He's sitting in Montreal, and Jacques Robler as well. They can maybe allude to more of that, because the guys are sitting with so many investigations at one time. We're going to do an in-depth human factor type investigation to really get to the whys. That's tough, and they try very hard to do so. Unfortunately, in my opinion, my personal opinion, is that the IK Annex 13 doesn't really guide us getting into the bottom line either. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money. It will take you a year to really maybe get close to it. So yes, France, there definitely will be to get into the whys. But like I personally believe, there's this mental thing is far bigger than what we thought it was. So Billy, I'll still fully liaise with you on that. I'll still pull you in as well, because there's no simple answer to that.
No, 100%, and I think that's why, you know, we did a few of these, and then the Meta guys came on board, and I think that's why I was so super excited about that, because you know, I don't want any of us to discount the, I almost want to say, mental health side of it, because that's what it is, you know, and that's really, really, really everything. Okay. Guys, jump in quickly with another question if you have. Otherwise, if you don't jump in the next 30 seconds, then this will be the last question. Andre de Kock asks, how about ADSB improve the situation to assist with SAR, search and rescue? So I'm guessing that's for you, Saintjie.
Will be absolutely an amazing tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Saintjie, maybe for people who, you know, there might be a few people who don't know what that means. What is ADSB? What would that do for you, and why don't we have it?
So ADSB is like a transponder type instrument in the aircraft that tracks aircraft. It's pretty much like radar, if you want to call it that, which means that you would be able to see aircraft, and not only ones that's under radar control, for example, like we see air traffic control. So if you look at people, that there's a lot of amazing flight radar 24 and radar box followers. Those aircraft that you see there, you see because of ADSB. So it will be an amazing tool for us to get last known positions if everybody is equipped with ADSB. So it's just an amazing tool.
Now, is that, I'm guessing that is a huge financial output that's needed, you know, on a national scale, or am I wrong?
Yeah, it's expensive and it's big. I mean, it's not something small. You most probably only find it on the major airliners, you know, the bigger aircraft. But I mean, you got ADSA and the others. So it's such a nice tool. I mean, there's communications with ATC to the aircraft. I mean, that's even possible.
Okay, cool. Well, I mean, I think that's something we could probably, you know, look forward to in the future. I mean, we've all been through different cycles of, you know, product cycles and things, and adoption, and the more people that do it, the cheaper it becomes to produce, etc., etc. So, yeah, I think that'll be something to look forward to for the future. Okay, guys. Well, I think, wait, hold on. We got one sneaky one. Should the Garmin InReach PLB also be registered through the email address Saintjie provided, even though it already has a subscription to GEOS?
Yeah, in South Africa, you have it's actually regulation that if you have a PLB, you need to register it either through ICASA or through the MRCC. So please do register it.
Okay, and I think his question was through the email address you provided. No, ICASA.
Yeah, we've got our MRCC, which is the custodians for the ELT and PLB and EPIRB databases for South Africa, are actually as a favor doing the registration on behalf of ICASA as well. It's just easier.
Okay, got you. Okay, so I hope we answered that question. Guys, I think that's it. Thanks again for everyone who tuned in, stuck around, you know, asked questions, and had a real conversation with us tonight. I think it's really great. Neil, I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you for hosting this and doing a great job, like you always do. Unli there in the background, hello, thank you as well. And I see Rob Yonkers also joined us. How's it, Rob? See you over the weekend. That's it from me. Neil, thank you very much, guys. An amazing webinar, again, very informative, learned some cool new stuff, and we hope to see you again. But just remember, before you log off, the next time you better bring a buddy with, so we can grow the reach, you know. And I'm just going to remind you again, doesn't matter if it's the safest guy you've ever flown with or the guy in the WhatsApp group that you think is going to kill himself tomorrow. We want all of them you know, we really think we can add some value, have a discussion. Maybe they have 1 or 2 questions to make it interesting and exciting. We just want to grow this. Guys, thank you very much. Awesome as always. Neil, over to you.
France, thank you so much. And just to all our speakers, a very big thank you for all your efforts in preparing for tonight. I know that you guys do this out of the goodness of your heart. Like France mentioned, it's for the love of what you guys do and just keeping everybody safe. And if we could have saved somebody tonight, then it's all worth it. And then just a reminder, just if you want to catch up on our previous webinars and you haven't seen them, just head to virtualaerosouthafrica.co.za and the previous webinars are there. And just again, thanks for all your time. We appreciate you joining us. I know it's late, and I wish you all a very pleasant evening further. And until we meet again, adios. Take care,
Ciao.
everybody. Cheers. Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye.
Well, thanks,
Yes,
guys.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Dankie Annelie vir jou werk. Waardeer. Dankie Frans. Ja.
Altyd.
Nou, well done, team.
Dankie julle. Well done.
Thank you, Annelie. Thanks, France, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.